Hi everyone, welcome to the Trophy Coins channel. Today we're going to be talking about this incredible 1850 $10 gold piece, primarily because it has a very interesting story to tell. One of the things that we discover as we search for provenances on these older coins is that sometimes the name of prior collectors gets stripped off for whatever reason. It could be an accident, it could be intentional, we just don't know. And here's a case where we were able to find this particular coin and tie it to a very famous collection, the Louis Eliasberg collection. Now this is something I've been working on for a number of years. I call it the Eliasberg project. And this is where I'm trying to identify all of the Eliasberg coins where possible to see how they have appeared on the market today and what their current so-called modern grade is. And this is an interesting example of how that works. So if we look at the most recent appearance down here at the bottom, it was in a Heritage 2018 sale where it was in a PCGS MS63 holder. This was an older generation green label holder, and it also had a CAC sticker, sold for $48,000, which is a pretty strong price. We rank this as number 3 in the condition census, so it's really one of the finest known, one of the top 3 finest knowns. So let's go and look at that Heritage auction and see what they showed for it. Here it is. This was 2018, and here's a picture of the coin in the old green holder with a CAC sticker. Really nice, lustrous looking coin. Definitely a nicer image in the holder than it is this individual picture that they took. But what you'll notice about this coin is there is a toning spot right here by the tip of the coronet. There's another one right above the right above and to the right of the 8 of the date. And then if we go on the back side, we've got another spot here in front of the eagle's beak, and this was the really telling one right here, right underneath this period between the D and the A of America. It'll turn out to be a really significant way to prove that this is the exact same coin. Anytime you have multiple points, like if I have one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and if I can match several or all of those to another plate, then I know I have a perfect match. The other thing, you can also discount these. Well, this isn't showing up on any of the coins, or there's another mark on another coin that shows up, say, here in the field. We're going to discount that coin and say it's not a match. But we're looking for perfect matches. In this case, the pedigree that was listed in the catalog here goes to the Admiral collection. That was the current consignor in 2018, and then it also goes back to the Warren Miller collection in 1995. So this coin has actually had been off the market for, let's see, 23 years, and prior to that it was in a 1989 sale, the Herman Halpern collection sold by Stax in $589. And we're going to be looking at both of those sales to see what we can find out. When we go to the Warren Miller collection, that's this one here, 6269, and here it is described as the finest known 1850 large date eagle. So that's a pretty significant statement. As I mentioned, we call this number 3, so a little bit of play there. And that could change because new coins are discovered, new coins are upgraded or regraded. We just don't know. But at the time, at the state of the market in 1995, this was one of the finest known. Now, Warren Miller was a collector who put together gold coins by die variety. A phenomenal collector, built a really incredible collection, actually wrote a reference book on them that has since been superseded by John Danruther's work on gold coin varieties. But at the time, in 1995, this coin was the finest known. Now, if we look at it a little bit closer, and this, by the way, is an image from the Newman numismatic portal. You can see all the details here. But if you look at this coin, and we're looking for those toning spots that appeared in the heritage image to see if there's a match. On the front of the coin, there's really not much of any use, but if we go to the back of the coin and we really zoom in on it, we can see here's the one in front of the beak, here's the one over here in the field to the left of the E in America, and then when we look down here, this is the one I told you to pay attention to. This little stain or spot right here is a convincing argument in conjunction with these other two that that's the same coin. And we already know that because it was identified as such in the Heritage Catalog. So now let's go to the Herman Halperin catalog in 1989, and let's look at lot 209. Here again we have the 1850 large date. No pedigree information whatsoever. It's just called brilliant, uncirculated, and choice, and rare as are all no motto eagles in mint state. So they made no judgment as to whether this is the finest known or even in the condition census, which of course we know it is. Here again, let's look and see if we can find the plate matching. And on this one here, we've got a couple spots on the front that I believe did show up on the heritage lot. So let's look at that again. Yeah, we have the little dot above the date and then one in front of the cornet. So yes, these are showing up in this one here. But on the reverse, we see in much clearer detail the dots or the spots that we're looking for. That's this one here underneath the A. Here's one to the right of the D, right in front of the eagle's beak. And there, of course, is this really convincing one, which is the spot right by the stop here between the two words. So we know that this came from the Herman Halperin collection. So we've already gone from heritage to Stax to Herman Halperin, and we've gone back to 1989. So where did this coin come from? Where did it show up prior to 1989? Generally, the only way to find that out is to go to the old auction catalogs and just look for them. Generally, with a coin like this, it sold for $11,000 in 1995. I don't have the sale price from 1989, but probably somewhere around $5,000 or $6,000. So yes, it's an important coin, but it wasn't so important that people are going to be plating it or paying any attention to it in previous sales. The farther back you go in time, the less likely it is for a coin like this to show up as a highlight in an auction. You know, they're looking for Stellas, they're looking for, $1,794 in mint state, super high grade or super rare coins, and this, it just isn't one of them. It's an important coin, but it's gonna be kind of hard to find, we think. Well, as I was going through working on provenance research on the 1850 large date 10, of course I got to go back to the Eliasberg sale. Now the thing about the Eliasberg sale is it was not graded MS63. So you have a disconnect between the older grades and the newer grades, and that's one of the reasons that I do this project, to try to find what the difference is between the grade in 1982 when Eliasberg, his gold coins went up for sale, and what the modern grade is today. So we know today it's an MS63 holder, but it was described in Eliasberg, I'll show you right now, as brilliant uncirculated MS60. So, at that grade, it is at the lower end of the condition census, but still an important coin. And of course, we have to do the work to see if the plates match. And in this case, we're going to zoom in a little bit. And here we have, you can barely see the dot in front of the cornet. You can barely see the dot above the 8 of the date. One of the reasons for this is a lot of the images from the Eliasberg sale were just literally blown out. They call it, the contrast is so high that it blows out some of the detail. Well, in this case, the dots, the spots on the back are so large that it's impossible to blow them out. And in this case, we see the big dot underneath the A, and then we have our famous spot underneath the stop here. So we know that this coin is the one from the Admiral collection in 2018. Now, we go back further, and it tells us that the provenance started with 1891, July 1891, where John M. Clapp, John's father, purchased the coin or obtained the coin from the Warren Loan and Trust Company. I'm not sure where that is. Probably could do a Google search and find out, but that's really not important. What the important thing is that this coin now has a pedigree that goes all the way back to 1891. When John M. Clapp died, he bequeathed this collection to his son, John H. And John H., his collection, he built upon it further. He added coins to it. And in 1942, it was sold via stacks to Louis Eliasberg. Probably, well, not probably, it was definitely the collection that put Eliasberg on the map and gave him the leg up so that he could complete a collection of all United States coins. So this is a pretty neat pedigree. So that's the story of how we're reattaching these pedigrees, these lost pedigrees, to modern coins. And in this case, we have a coin that went from brilliant uncirculated MS60 up to a PCGS MS63. Not only is it a 63, but it's in a CAC stickered holder, which means it's above average for the date, for the grade. So it's a really neat coin, and this is just an illustration for you of how we do this research and this provenance research. And as we're doing it, we're occasionally, every once in a while, we get lucky and we're able to add an Eliasberg provenance to a modern coin that nobody had an idea that it was from Eliasberg. The Eliasberg name and many other names like Nora Webb Garrett, they carry a premium when people know that they came from that collection. So in this case, whoever bought this for $48,000 in 2018 now has a coin that if they see this or visit the Trophy Coins website, they'll know that they have a coin that came from the Eliasberg collection. Thank you for listening, for watching the video. Please like and subscribe if we've earned your business, and we hope to see you in a future video. Thank you.